All right, we are live, correct?
Yes, we are live.
Hello, Internet land. Make sure you share on my feed, please.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we are back in the Bible in the Light of Our Redemption by E.W. Kenyon. We don't own the rights to it, but you can get it on Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon. I bought something the other day, and Mom was like, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "Amazon." And she's like, "Are you kidding me?"
Is that where you bought the bed frame from?
That's where I bought the bed frame. I got. You can. You can get anything from Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all, I was so happy. Normally, we go to the Walmart and do the back to school supply shopping, and it's like you got to look through everything and hope to Jesus that they have what you need. Katie's like, "Let's do Amazon this year." I'm like, "Yes, let's do Amazon." Just to add it to the cart. I don't even care. I ain't got to go into town for it. I don't care. So, yeah, some of that stuff is coming in today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you can get anything on Amazon, including this, for under $20. So, get it. We live in such a time. And I know I went over this before, but I just feel like going over it again. I mean, growing up, I remember, like, we would go to Macon, Georgia, for church camp each year. And when we went to church camp, there was like this really big Christian bookstore in Macon, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And so every year we made the stop at the Christian bookstore because they didn't have nothing around here. You couldn't just... We didn't have Amazon, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Didn't have the internet hardly, but you didn't have access to this information. There wasn't stuff like concordances that you can keep on your phone, and Strong's Concordance would run you $100 for a hard copy, and only the pastor had those, or people that could afford a $100 book. Not everybody could, mm-hmm. And so you had to really work and invest to get any type of knowledge or understanding. Like, you had to be hungry for it to really dig it out. And now, praise God, anybody can get a Blue Letter Bible app. If you got a $30 smartphone, you got access to Greek, to Hebrew, to just about any translation of the Bible that you want for free. There's wonderful apps like Parallel Plus. If you want to compare all the translations, you can pull 8 of them out side by side.
That's great for your tablet.
Oh yes, it's great.
I got 7.
Oh yeah.
7 translations.
Exactly.
Right in front of me.
And that's
Mindy started a course last night.
Yes, we did. Okay, that's not free, but if you're a Prime member, I like the channel, The Great Courses. We got that as a supplement to homeschool, and there is biblical Hebrew. You can listen to lectures. I'm like, we are such nerds. It's 10 o'clock at night, and we're listening to a lecture on biblical Hebrew.
About
the Aleph.
The Aleph and the Hay and the Lamad and all that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I got to go back and watch that again because, that's all I got out of it. And he read like a whole verse.
Learned about hallelujah, hallelujah,
just
hallelujah.
Yep, hallelujah. Yeah.
And on the way here, we were using the through the word.
Yes, that's a good one.
And listening to
First Corinthians.
First Corinthians, yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
KCM app, great devotionals. Great devotionals on the KCM app.
Yeah,
highly recommend.
The Bible apps.
Bible apps got
Bible. Yeah.
Bible apps got good.
Devotionals.
Got a bunch.
Yes, they do.
So
all these are free.
Free. So if you hungry, there really ain't no excuse because everybody and their brother's got a $30 smartphone from Walmart.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't always carry a little Bible with you, but you can always have a smartphone.
Yes, you can. Just delete Candy Crush and put a Bible app on there. You'll be fine. You make it. Okay? And I say that because I may have been in triple digit levels on Candy Crush at one time. I'm just, you get bored. Yeah, it's the empty bottle. It's fine. I'll pick it up in a minute. Okay. Anyway, we have been going through the fall, and this is going from Genesis to Revelation. Mm-hmm. We are up to the call of Abraham.
Mm-hmm. What?
The call of Abraham. Yeah. It's getting exciting. We've seen where it came specific, but then things got a little broad. The seed of woman, that's very specific because women don't have seed. But then we found a family marked, a child in the family marked, and that's the branch that began to be followed. And we saw how the devil is continuously trying to destroy the righteous. Continuously. It ain't gonna change. If you decide to live righteous, the devil's gonna put a target on your back. Now he's defeated is the good news, but that don't mean that you don't have to stand up to him.
That's right. That's right. He'll definitely try to make things rougher on you. As long as you're doing what, he likes. Oh, things go peachy. Things go smooth.
Yeah.
Because God's a gentleman. He's not like the devil. He's not pushy. He's not going to make things hard for you if you don't do it God's way. But the devil, if you're not doing it his way, well.
That's why the Bible calls us overcomers. Not
That's right.
overcomers, but more than overcomers.
More than conquerors.
That's right.
More than conquerors.
We're victorious.
We're victorious in Christ.
These all imply that there's a fight.
That regardless of whatever the devil does bring.
We wrestle.
We wrestle. We overcome.
Yeah.
We endure.
That's right.
This
is not the language of a free ride.
We stand our ground.
Yeah.
And
we stand. Having done all, stand. Yeah. Ephesians.
That's it.
There you go.
That's it. So here we go on the call of Abraham. All right. 367 years after the flood, Abraham appears. Noah was alive for 50 years after the birth of Abraham. Yeah. Man, we've learned how to die pretty quick now.
Yep.
We got it down to 70 years?
I think it was
average, yeah.
Average.
I think if I remember correctly, I think Seth was still alive.
Some believe that Seth was Melchizedek, but that's a whole nother story.
I couldn't.
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a theory. I can neither confirm nor deny anything there because I haven't dug it out, but I remember hearing some preachers speak on that. So,
I know Seth. I looked at a thing the other day and it looked like on the timeline Seth was still alive.
Yes, Seth was still alive.
When Noah was born and alive, and then I imagine before the flood. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there you go. The world had lapsed into idolatry. Abraham lived among pagans and idolaters until he was 75 years old. He had been born and had lived in Ur of the Chaldees, one of the most splendid ancient cities, until he received his call from God. They had indoor plumbing. That is like the coolest thing to me. I'm hung up on the plumbing.
There was actually, you think about those times, but yet, man, I tell you what, the Romans in their aqueducts and their bathrooms and everything, it wasn't quite as bad as, not true of what PVC or cast iron piping.
Well, that's true, but they also used urine as mouthwash.
Okay.
I watch history shows. Nothing about that sounds like a good idea, does it?
No.
Okay, that's a side note.
That was
To be so advanced, they were a little messed up. We can understand why God revealed himself to Abraham. The revelation of God was practically lost. If a righteous line were to be preserved through which God could send his incarnate Son, he must choose one man who knew him and make of him a nation that would preserve the knowledge of himself upon the earth. That preservation, that is so important.
Yeah.
There were so many things that were set up to preserve, and I go back to because of man's desire to look for loopholes, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
So that's why we have all these practices that we're going to go into in the old covenant to really get to the heart of don't do the thing, Adam. Don't do the thing. And one rule. It's all going back to that same one rule. But anyway. Anyway, that's just my thought pattern there. Let's see. Okay. Abraham's countrymen and his father were idolaters. If in him a nation was to be founded that would preserve God's revelation to man and a knowledge of man's Redeemer so that he would be recognized when he came, it was necessary for Abraham to be removed from these influences. Come out from among them. Come out from among them. And that's something that is still a call today in so many ways and whatnot. You know, we live in this world, but we are not to be of this world, and we should come out from those influences. You know, you're gonna be like whatever you give your ear to, whatever you spend your time with.
Yeah.
That's exactly how you're gonna be. It's not some magic potion that, well, I can read the Bible and I can do this, but if my inner circle is just lewd, crude, and cursing, I'm not going to be like them. No, you're going to be exactly like them.
You know, people love to talk about Jesus going and eating with sinners and publicans and things like that, and he did.
But that wasn't his circle.
But it wasn't that, even wasn't his circle. When he entered into those environments, the environment changed.
Oh yeah, you can't do that no more.
You know?
Stop it. Go and sin no more.
Yeah.
He didn't approve of what was going on, and he changed it. He didn't put up with it.
Yeah.
Right.
He did not put up with it in any circumstance.
You know, like Zacchaeus, for example. You know, he was a tax collector, right?
Yeah.
You know, and after he had his encounter with Jesus, what he goes back and he makes right on the money that he had taken wrongly.
Yep. That's right. He sure enough did.
Yeah.
There is a standard.
Yeah, well, you know, we're a deliverance ministry, and when we had to do the same thing. We're not asking people to do something that we didn't do, it's being said right here. When you go through deliverance and you become born again, and you shake off all these evils, you have to change your surroundings. You may have to change, even the family you're with, that you hang with, you may have to do some separation. And I even make a comment, you may even need to change your library card. I mean, I know it sounds funny to say that, but that's how sometimes in depth you have to go in order to get away from these things.
Well, I mean, think about it. We know, and we see this in everyday practice, the recovering addict. Can they go back out to the bar?
No, that's right.
Can they hang around their old drinking buddies? Why? Because it's inevitable he'll relapse or she'll relapse. It's just, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Well, don't think that you're going to get to buddy up with the same old buddies from the kingdom of darkness. Yeah. And you're not going to be affected by it. It's very much the same way. This is a natural principle that we can see through the lens of the addict or a rehab or whatever else you want to call it. Go ahead.
We've had them come into the house, the ones that are out of rehab.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because they won't be
told anybody.
As but
that's the deliverance side of it.
Yeah, no cell phone. As far as we've been told no cell phones, no nothing, and then.
But their old carousing buddies will be waiting on them.
They come out of rehab, come to the house, and had them waiting in the driveway.
Nope, you got
waiting
to
in the
go.
driveway for them.
Yeah, and the best one is, I'm going to witness to them. They want to learn about Jesus. No, they don't. No, they don't. We've been doing this for many years. And anytime a group comes in of 2 or 3, it's usually only one that really wants it. The other ones are just there to get them over it and get them out of it.
I remember we had one that was coming, and it was actually his dealer was coming with him.
With him.
Dealer was only there because the other one owed him money. And he was
pretty much. And he was following him around to see if we was giving him money.
Yeah.
Things that you see in church.
Yeah.
But anyway, Abraham would have to come out from among all that. There are many legends that tell of Abraham's being persecuted for his refusal to worship idols. Again, this is legends. So under a call of God, he set out in search of a land where a nation could be founded free from idolatry. And that's Genesis 12, if you want to go in and read all the details. So 25 years after Abraham had received his call from God, the greatest event in human history until the birth of Christ took place. It was the blood covenant into which Jehovah and Abraham entered. And oh my goodness, I'm going to pause here. This is Kenyon's outline, so I'm sure he's going to touch on a lot of it. He wrote a book called The Blood Covenant by E.W. Kenyon. And I remember my dad getting a hold of that book and it changing his life. It changed everything to realize the significance of a blood covenant and what that means. And I'm getting ahead of myself.
We're going to get there eventually.
I think we're going to get there, so I'm going to hold off.
Right.
There is a section coming up entitled Blood Covenants. I'm going to try to be good here.
Not far.
It's not far. We can make it, maybe.
I think we can.
Before we can understand the significance of this covenant that God cut with Abraham, we must know the meaning of the blood covenant. The blood covenant existed before Abraham. Proofs of the existence of this rite of blood covenanting have been found among primitive people of every quarter of the globe, and its antiquity is carried back to a date long prior to the days of Abraham. This is so cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
your dad and I.
yeah, blood covenant.
We had a blood covenant.
That's right. That's right. And I remember, talking about separate, I didn't know you growing up because, you and Daddy went back BC. So I didn't know Andy growing up. I knew of Andy because my dad always spoke highly of his blood brother, who he had a blood covenant with. So I knew he was out there, and and he would mist up when he'd think about it, wanting. I wished he would serve the Lord. I lost contact with him, and then the kid at Christmas when you came to church with him. I mean, he was like a squirrel on crack that morning running around the house. It's like, what is wrong with you? He's coming. But I remember him talking about that blood covenant and what that meant, and being sorrowful that y'all had fell out of contact because he didn't know how to honor that. At that point.
Yeah.
But I can remember that. I know we make lightly of this, in our culture. I don't think America has too much depth at times.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk about covenants.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're good at breaking them.
Yeah, we're great at breaking them. I mean, how many just flippantly enter into a covenant of marriage with the idea, well, if it don't work, I'll get a divorce. I mean, if that's your mindset, please don't do it.
Yeah. Don't even get married.
Does divorce happen? Yes. Are there reasons for divorce? Yes. But if you are entering it with that as your exit strategy, you probably gonna end up there. I mean, that just in general. Okay. So here we go on blood covenants. This is very important. It is evident that God cut the covenant or entered into a covenant with Adam at the very beginning. A common revelation of the blood covenant from God must have been given to primitive man. We saw the scattering of man at the Tower of Babel. Noah evidently must have possessed a knowledge of the significance of the blood covenant, that he handed it to his children, so that as the nations were formed from the dispersion at the Tower of Babel, each one possessed a knowledge of the blood covenant. I think about the first sacrifice when Adam had sinned and he had tried to cover himself and the leaves were not enough. It says that God gave them skins of animals. Well, let's think about that. He didn't just create skins. Animals had to die to cover Adam's transgression. And I think about that first sacrifice made by God himself. And the ultimate sacrifice would again be made by God himself. But I think about that blood covenant and entering into that, because it would be passing through the sacrifice, which we're going to get to that in a minute, hopefully. If not, we will detour quick. We believe this because of the following facts that are revealed in Henry Clay Trumbull's book, The Blood Covenant. You want to read?
Yeah.
Okay.
From the very beginning and everywhere, blood seems to have been looked upon as preeminently, or, preeminently the representative of life, as indeed in a peculiar sense. Sorry, y'all. Life itself, the transference of blood from one organism to another, has been counted the transference of life.
That's right.
And all that life includes.
Wow.
The intercommingling of blood by its intertransference has been understood as equivalent to the intercommingling of natures.
That's right.
Two natures thus intercommingling by the intercommingling of blood have been considered as forming thenceforward one blood, one life, one nature, one soul in two organisms.
Wow. I mean, let that sink in.
I explain.
The mingling of blood. You know, you cut your hand, you mingle the blood. That it's saying that you are becoming one with that person on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden two natures become one. All of a sudden, two lives become one shared life. You become one soul. You are knit together in such a way. The only other thing that we have close to that would be a marriage covenant. You know, where it says that we become one. That is amazing that this is in every culture, that this is passed down, that this is such a principle.
You think about this. You think about how friendships have been in your life. Friendships come, friendships go. Some last, you know, and I'm talking back from, say, childhood, like mine and Jimmy's.
Yeah.
And we formed a covenant between us as blood brothers.
Yep.
And no matter the distance, by miles,
That's right.
or by our walk spiritually,
Yeah, we're connected.
we were connected. You know, Marilyn can tell you, even before, you know, I introduced her to Jimmy.
Yeah.
I you know, Jimmy was in my heart. Jimmy was close to me.
That's right.
And had been for years. And I would seek him out, you know, from time to time. Now, you know, his walk spiritually with God was a lot different than mine, because I was not serving God.
Yeah.
And, you know, eventually, Matthew and Jimmy, Matthew with his tech, you know, his computer nerdiness, yeah. You know, getting these little short sermons online, and I found that. Started listening to Jimmy. I introduced her to Jimmy, and through that, and at that time she says, "Wow, I want to go to church there." So we did. But, you know, and it didn't take me long after that to change my walk.
That's right.
I mean, it did not. I mean, I was ready. I was really ready for a change, and I was already starting to, you know, in my mind, get towards that, and I'm trying to figure out a way, how can I shake, well, the life I've been living, and the way I talked, and the things I did, and the things I consumed, and start doing things God's way. Well, Matthew, thank you. I've told you that before, because of him putting this thing online, and Jimmy's words, here I am.
That's it.
And
I guess really you got a doctor in Texas to thank, because when I was a boy, me and him used to play on computers all the time, and he's the one that got me interested. So
yeah,
got ordained. It's so funny how God ordains and stuff.
yeah, I mean, things happen, and by doing that though, it's touched your life, all of our lives. But look at the fresh faces we have here this morning.
That's right.
And it has a lot to do with, our online ministry.
And the online ministry is growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, it is. And, so here we are.
Yeah, okay, and I did kind of skip ahead a little bit to go over it, but this is such a beautiful example, and it's in his book, in Kenyon's book, The Blood Covenant. He talks about a missionary in Africa, and it's not going to go into this story, so I'm going to go into the story now. We're going to. Okay. He talks about this missionary who went to Africa, and due to stomach issues or whatever else, he had one milk goat, and he had to have that goat's milk in order to survive. Like, no goat, no living. He would have died. So he would try to get into the different tribes to evangelize, and they'd shut him out. Nope. So here he is with his little goat, and the tribes were ran individually, but there was like not a union, but for lack of a better word, a union of these tribes, and there was a chief amongst one tribe who kind of called all the shots. And one day the interpreter came out to him and said, "Hey, this chief wants you to come to him, and he wants to make a covenant with you." The missionary said, "Okay." So he went to the chief, and there was they drained some blood from a cow and mingled it in milk, and there was the exchanging of gifts. And the missionary said, "Well, what does the chief want?" "Your milk goat." That's what he wants. "But if I don't have this milk goat, I will die." "Well, if you don't give that milk goat, you won't have a covenant." So he gave the milk goat to the chief, and in return he got a little broken spear. And he was a little upset because it was a broken spear. It wasn't good for nothing. He's like, "I'm gonna die." That was his takeaway from this. "I'm gonna die. This man has just took me for a ride." So he goes to his tent or whatnot, and he goes to evangelize the next tribe. And he walks in, and he's got this spear. Well, as soon as that spear is seen, he gets the best of everything. He is ushered in. He stays with the chiefs. He is heard. If he needs milk, he gets milk. Whatever he has need of, all he has to do is walk in and show that spear. Why? Because he's in covenant with this chief. He is one with this chief. Whatever treatment that chief would get, this missionary now gets. It was a good trade. It was a very good trade. But this is the significance of the blood covenant. Yeah. Because now he's no longer just this missionary. Now he is missionary, but with chief connected to it. Mm-hmm. Because they are now one life. You see, it's very significant what happens. And this is the blood covenant that we enter into the better covenant. Because now God does not just see Andy. He sees Andy and Christ. Yeah. See, we take on that better covenant through the blood of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And it's just, we need to understand in American culture, we get this culture lapse. We got to stop looking at things through the lens of what we think we understand. Being a blood brother is not just something that kids do, and no, it means so much more. It's a shared life. It's a highly spiritual thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So enter into things of that nature very cautiously. Think and consider your covenants. But this is the power of the blood covenant, and God himself would make a blood covenant with Abraham. So take that on. He is sharing his life, all that he is, with Abraham.
So
That's the setup.
yeah, when we're born again, when we wholeheartedly turn our lives over to God and surrender,
Yes.
we become born again, and we are new creatures.
Yes.
It's what it says. We are new creatures.
Yeah.
Even though we look the same,
Yes.
spiritually,
We different.
we are different.
We are different.
Yes, and we have to walk that way,
That. Yeah.
Then we have to walk
That's
it
why
out.
that separation happens.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
Okay.
all right.
All right, I'll continue reading. The intercommingling of nature by the intercommingling of blood has been deemed possible between man and lower organisms, and between man and higher organisms, even between man and deity, actually, or by symbol,
Yep.
as well as between man and his immediate fellow.
Yep.
A covenant of blood, a covenant made by the intercommingling of blood, has been recognized as the closest and holiest and most indissoluble
Yeah.
compact conceivable.
There you go. Indissoluble.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Indissoluble.
Indissoluble. Yeah. This ain't something to enter into lightly.
Right. There are 3 reasons for men cutting the covenant with each other. Okay, number 1, if a strong tribe lives by the side of a weaker tribe,
Yep.
and there is danger of the weaker tribe being destroyed, the weaker will seek to cut the covenant with the stronger tribe that they may be preserved.
That's right.
Number 2, if 2 parties want to go into business together and one is going to leave the country and travel to as a foreign representative, a covenant will be cut between the partners.
That's right.
Number 3, if 2 men love each other as devotedly as David and Jonathan, they will cut the covenant.
That's right.
The moment the blood covenant is solemnized solemnized, everything that a blood covenant man owns is at the disposal of his blood brother.
Wow.
Yet his brother would never ask for anything unless he were absolutely driven by want to do it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that part right there is so true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think,
Yeah.
When your daddy went over this, take some time, or do we have time to kind of step through that real quick? Or?
Yeah. Was Andy? Andy,
I'm
was
sorry.
you finished?
yeah,
I mean, if you was, that's fine. If not, let Andy go.
Yeah.
It's your turn. Skippy.
No, I love the way your daddy put it. So like if I'm Matthew Farmer, and I go into covenant with Andy Hunter,
Yeah.
then
Or Warrior.
or Andy Warrior, then when we cut the covenant together,
Yeah.
I give him my garment, whether
Yep.
it's like a belt maybe to hold up hold seat packs or something, whatever, and I give him a tool that I use,
Yep.
like
A trowel.
like a trowel.
Yeah.
And then he gives me a piece of his garment, maybe a piece of armor, and then his a tool that he
Sword.
uses, like a sword, and those become symbols of the covenant
Yes.
that we have together. But now, when Andy's family
Yeah.
is hungry, they eat before my family does.
That's right.
When my family needs protection, my family gets protection from
Before
the warrior
Andy's.
family before the warrior family gets
Yeah.
it.
That's the covenant.
That's the covenant. It's that they join together.
That's right.
And they put each other before themselves.
That's it. That's it. That is the covenant. That is the degree of the covenant. And God himself entered into this covenant with Abraham, which is just setting the stage for how he will enter into that covenant with anyone who will enter into covenant with him. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is the beginnings. This is the line in which it follows. It's progressive.
Mm-hmm.
It's progressive.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Another feature is that as soon as the covenant is cut, they are called by others the blood brothers.
That's right.
That blood covenant goes down through the generations.
Mm-hmm.
It is as indissoluble covenant that generations cannot erase.
Our family will be in covenant till the end of time.
Yep.
That's just how it is.
Mm-hmm. If a man cuts the covenant with his friends, the children of the two families are bound to observe it.
Mm-hmm.
And,
That's right.
saying that, Mindy brought this up to me before I even thought about it. I didn't even really, and she brought it up about the covenant that Jimmy and I had, and that, she honors it. And I was very impressed because I had not thought about it. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
I'm just, for lack of a better word, I had thought too many other things about that, because it was so many years ago.
Yeah.
But yet, that's how strong, and that's how what it meant to Jimmy and to her. And now, since it was brought back up, it is very, very, very important.
Well, these are all picture things,
Mm-hmm.
and we will see through pictures the heart of God toward man.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives us the blood covenant.
Mm-hmm.
How well do we think of it? If we can't honor a blood covenant with someone that we can see, how will we honor the blood covenant with a God we can't see?
Yep. That's right.
Things like that.
Yeah. You think about the blood Jesus shed for us.
That's it.
He walked into that. He was taken, but he did it voluntarily.
He did. Willingly.
Mm-hmm.
Willingly. And now he gives us his name.
Mm-hmm.
What are we giving him?
Yeah. Okay. If two men in Africa cut the covenant, as Mr. Stanley tells us, and Dr. Livingstone bears witness, and one man should break the covenant, his nearest relatives would seek his death.
Oh, there you go.
For no man can live in Africa who breaks the covenant. He curses the round. Okay.
His own family would kill him.
There is nothing that is absolutely sacred with us.
Yep.
But in Africa, the covenant is sacred.
That's right.
Mr. Stanley and Dr. Livingstone both testify that they never knew the covenant to be broken.
And I've heard many people talk about it. The African people are a very spiritual people. Sometimes that spirituality is misplaced, but they understand spiritual things. Again, I'm not saying that they understand all the things of God, because you have to come to God to do that. But the fact of the matter is, they had the Word of God before we did. It went down into Upper Africa before it came into Europe. Fact of the matter. So you're looking at things they understand. And the fact that they're holding to this blood covenant is a very spiritual principle that we should understand as Christians. While you can walk away from that covenant and you can be a covenant breaker and there is forgiveness, and I know God has taken many people back. He doesn't promise to do it every time. Okay, that's a misconception that we have. We should be as sold out to the covenant that we're not going to break it as they are with covenant between men that they can see. That should be how committed we are to the blood covenant of Christ.
That was the thing the other day when we were reading Ephesians that stuck out to us.
Yeah.
Because we were reading about Ephesians. We
Yep.
were reading in Acts 19, and where Paul visits Ephesus.
Yeah.
And they were a people that were tied up with
Rough.
paganism and idol worship and things like that.
They were doing all kinds of stuff.
But when they accepted this covenant with Jesus,
Yeah.
they went and they changed. They
That's
brought
it.
all their occult objects. to
They
the
just
Lord,
burned it.
and they burned it.
They didn't keep the gold.
They didn't keep the gold, the silver, the things. I mean, because
It was trash.
Yeah. They did away with it. And there was a large sum of money that got burnt there.
Yeah.
They changed
Yeah,
who they were.
that's it. Yep. Absolutely. All right.
Okay. The method of cutting the covenant is particular, practically the same the world over. In some places, it has degenerated into very grotesque
Yeah.
rite, but it is the same blood covenant.
Yep.
The method that is practiced by the Africans, Arabians, Syrians, and Balkans is this. 1. Two men who wish to cut the covenant come together with friends and a priest.
Okay.
2. They exchange gifts. Then they bring a cup of wine. 3. The priest makes the incision in the arm of each man, allowing the blood to drip into the wine. 4. Then they mingle the wine and drink it.
Yep.
Now they are blood brothers.
Pretty much. The Abrahamic covenant. The 17th chapter of Genesis takes on new meaning for us now, because God entered into this covenant with Abraham. We see that when God appeared to Abraham to make a covenant with him, Abraham knew what it meant. God was coming into a covenant of strong friendship with him. The blood covenant was called the covenant of strong friendship. That is why Abraham was called the friend of God. And we have James 2 and 23.
Hold on, I'm
That's
gonna pull
okay.
that up. Yeah. Two and 23. Let's see where we at. Okay, next one's
Yep.
okay. James 2 and 23, and I'm gonna read this in the New King James.
Okay.
And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God.
Yep. Then we have Isaiah 41 and 8.
I love the book of Isaiah.
Oh yeah. He had to walk around naked for years. Did you know that?
Okay.
As a sign of the coming imprisonment.
Okay. But you, Israel, are my servant, Jacob. Are my servant.
Yep.
Jacob, whom I have chosen. The descendants of Abraham, my friend.
That's right. 2 Chronicles 20 and 7.
Where am I going?
Old Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said, where am I going?
He was headed for Corinthians, wasn't
I
he?
was. I don't know why.
Well,
Okay. Are you not our God,
that's right.
who drove out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel, and gave it to the descendants of Abraham, your friend, forever?
Abraham is the only human being who was called the friend of God in the Old Testament. Now in the new covenant, we are made friends of God. You know, I think about on Wednesday nights we hear there's a prayer call on Wednesday where things from the book of Acts are still going on today. Billy Graham prays in the Spirit, and Brother Max hears in his native language of Arabic, and he writes down the interpretation. And it's every Wednesday, and it's just so amazing. Because many years ago, Billy Graham's husband was not doing well. He was sick, and she was, fighting. And God had a mission for them to go overseas, and she was asking, do I go, do I stay, do I go, do I stay, because he was going down. And she made the choice to go, to be obedient to the Lord and go overseas. Well, he transitioned into glory about 20 minutes before she made it home, stateside. And at that point, God's told her that she was his friend because she held nothing above him, not even her own husband. And I think about that, what are we willing to put God in front of? Because so many times there's something that we put in front of God that comes first and God comes second. Well, God's not going to be second. If we're going to be friends of God and in that covenant, nothing comes before him. That's the covenant. Mm-hmm. And that just makes me think about that, in that old covenant with Abraham, he was a friend of God. Mm-hmm. You don't see many friends. But in the new covenant, we're his friends. He doesn't call us servants anymore. He calls us friends. He calls us children. It's that covenant in operation. If we can shatter our Americanized view of a blood covenant, throw that garbage out. I keep going back to that because the Lord's just really showing me that we can't read the Bible through American understanding because we're going to misinterpret everything. You need to understand the culture and the time and the way things in which it was written in order to get a better understanding of what it is and what the heart of it is and what that means to us now.
Yeah.
That's my little sidebar. Because it's so amazing. Okay, so the covenant God cut with Abraham was to bring the Israelite nation into being as a covenant people. Genesis 17:7.
And I will establish my covenant between me and you, your descendants after you, in their generations.
That's right.
For an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and your descendants after you.
That's right. Because remember, the covenant doesn't just last between the two that made it. It's generations. Generations. It'll go on forever. That's why, you bless God's chosen people. You bless the Jewish nation. Every chance you get, always bless the Jewish nation. If you find someone who is Jewish, bless them. Why? Because there's a blessing that comes for blessing them. And we've seen that in operation time and time again. My dad used to do work for Sid Roth, and it was hilarious.
We would not have a bit of work very long, and we would go and write a check and put it in his mailbox. The offering because he's got a ministry.
That's
and,
right. He does.
I mean, I'm talking about we would close the lid on the mailbox. And the phone would start ringing. And by the end of the day, we would
have up to their eyeballs
to carry us through the next week.
Well, my favorite story, and I can tell this because Daddy's no longer doing this, and you don't do this business, so it was funny. Whenever he would call for a job, trapping raccoons or whatever else that was getting in his place, because that's the kind of work my dad did. He was a wildlife control operator, trapping pool poopers and everything else.
He's a rat trapper.
Yeah, right. He was just an old rat trapper. So he'd get a call. They'd do the job, and you know, they would
Write paid in full
on the bill and just hand it in. And it was years later.
Yeah.
Sid called Daddy. I mean, they had moved on from Brunswick. And he called Daddy and he's like, James, I always thought my wife paid the bill, and my wife was always thinking I paid the bill. And Daddy said, no, I'll bless God's people always. Always. And that's all it took. Okay. Because you know what? God took care of it. God took care of that end of the covenant. Let me tell you something. There is blessings that come when we honor the things of God. He set that into motion the moment he had that covenant with Abraham, and it is still going today. And it's regardless of what state that person is in, whether they're a believer or not. There's just that blessing because God has made a covenant with the Jewish nation, period. Bless them. Bless them. Don't fall on the wrong end of that. We don't replace Israel. There are two churches now. There is going to be the church that is of Abraham, that is the Jewish believers, and there's the church that is the believers of the new covenant. But that's a whole nother story. Okay, so then God gave to Abraham the method of cutting the covenant. So we have verses 10 through 14.
Okay. This is my covenant which you shall keep.
Yes.
Between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin.
Yep.
And it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. Every male child in your generation, he who is born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendant. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
There you go. So that was the sign of the old covenant, or Abraham's covenant. The seal of the covenant was circumcision. Every male child was circumcised at the age of 8 days, and that circumcision was the entrance into the covenant, which, if my mama and Susan was here, they would give you the medical end of it, but it's a proven fact. I think that the blood clots best on day 8 on the medical field of it, if you want the medical side of that.
Okay.
God knows these things.
Yeah.
But anyway, Genesis 17:26.
And it says that the very same day Abraham was circumcised and his son Ishmael.
That's it. So, in the self-same day, Abraham was circumcised, and afterward, he bore in his flesh the evidence that he had entered into the blood covenant of friendship with God. To this day, Abraham is designated in the East as the friend of God. After the formal covenant of blood has been cut between God and Abraham, there came a testing of Abraham's fidelity to that covenant. This testing would also give evidence to the future generations that the cutting of the covenant on the part of Abraham in the rite of circumcision had not been an empty ceremony, but that in that he had pledged his very life to Jehovah. So we have Genesis 15:6, which is...
The other interesting part is the name, too. the changing from Abram to Abraham.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
that's
And
right. The
The
change.
addition of Ham, and actually when you look at the Hebrew,
Mm-hmm.
the last two letters that
Yeah.
are added are the same ones, last two in Elohim.
Ah.
A little bit different, they got the different vowel,
Oh, cool.
so.
That's what I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
most about learning biblical Hebrew. I'm a nerd.
Tell them I am
Yeah. Yeah.
sent you.
Now, it's important to note before we all go off and get on a kick, because God's people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge in the new covenant, and I can attest to this because Daddy would say it all the time too about well, we keep circumcising our sons because Abraham was circumcised. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but if you get into the New Testament, it tells you it's those who are circumcised of heart, and that was never a stipulation put on the Gentile church.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of shoots it out the window. Now, to me, that's just all personal choice, but it's not a sign of the covenant unless you are part of the Jewish of the new covenant. It's part of the Abraham's covenant. If you're part of the Jewish nation, carry on, my friend, but don't make the decision based off of that in the New Testament church, because there's no scriptural back, and that.
Yeah.
Now, that's again. If you want to do that, go that route. That's fine.
I think in today's culture in America, it's medical.
It is medical.
It's a cleanliness
Hey, go for it. Yeah, but don't try to claim it's not part of our covenant in the New Testament.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Don't claim that it's a spiritual thing if you're not in that, is what you're saying.
It's not. We're
do it for that reason.
we're circumcised in heart.
Yeah, because my mama said, Mama say it was for cleanliness.
There you go. And hey, got a lot of medical people advocating that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's important for us to know where we're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's important for us to understand it. That there is a covenant. There's other things that we bear, and it's our hearts have been cut. Our hearts have been circumcised, and that goes a whole lot deeper than your flesh.
You're right.
So that's just all the added trails that we're going to go through on these things.
Yeah.
I apologize. I hope I'm not boring anybody.
Okay. Genesis 15:6.
Yes.
It says, and he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness.
Yeah. So before Jesus, we have a righteous man.
Okay. That's it? Oh yeah. Well, exactly.
Because he
righteous. There's many that are named as perfect in their generation, so it can be done. And that's really what Jesus came to show us. Now the sacrifice part we couldn't have done. But he came to show us that the guidelines he set up could be done.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to need that blue letter Bible, dear, because I'm probably going to butcher some words here in Hebrews.
Go for it.
I mean, not Hebrews, but Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go, 15:6. Because I ain't there yet. Where's believed in? There it is. Wait a minute. It's giving me a different word. Why is it giving me a different word? Huh. This is saying that the Hebrew word is hemem. Heemem.
Yeah.
And yet Blue Letter Bible is giving me Amon, unless I've hit the wrong button. Which is possible, y'all. It could be operator error. Yep. Okay.
Mom.
It's giving me a different word.
Okay.
Here translated, believed in, carries the idea of an unqualified committal of oneself to another. Abraham so trusted Jehovah that he was ready to commit himself to Jehovah as in the rite of the blood covenant. Therefore, God counted Abraham's spirit of loving and longing trust as ready for a blood covenant friendship between them. And, knowing that, on Wednesday nights we talk a lot about Hesed and that obligatory love. Why? Because he's obligated because of the blood covenant. So here, you start seeing the line. It attaches all the threads.
Mm-hmm.
Again, things that we miss because in our culture, in our part of the world, we don't have the grasping of these things.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to break the lens somewhat in order to understand what the depth is of this. Why is there an obligatory love? Why is there that love and kindness? Why? Because he's in covenant with us.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't back up on his end of the covenant. Now we back up on ours all the time, and that should not be.
Right.
If we had understanding of it, would we do it? I done lost my spot again. Okay. The testing came, is that where I'm at?
I think it is.
Yeah, the testing came when Isaac, a blood covenant child that God had miraculously given to Abraham, was 18 or 20 years old. Here we go. Abraham's testing. Genesis 22, 1 and 2.
Okay, you can read it
Sure,
out
why
of
not?
the Bible.
However you want to do it. You
Okay.
can read it on the page or out the Bible.
I can do it in the page.
Whatever.
It's already here.
There you go.
It came to pass after these things that God did prove Abraham
Mm-hmm.
and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son,
Mm-hmm.
whom thou lovest, even Isaac,
Mm-hmm.
and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee of.
You know, I think back in Scripture before the birth of Isaac, and how God was asking Abraham, "What will I bless you with? What do you?"
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham, in layman's terms, well, what's the point since I ain't got a son? You know, ain't got nobody to give it to. What's the point? And then we move into the blood covenant, and then we move into these things. And now God's asking him to give up that one thing that he desired more than anything else.
I mean, in today's time, Abraham and Sarah, well, they should have been, they were nursing home status, so to speak. I mean, they were old.
Yeah.
You know, what was he, 90?
He was 100 when
100.
Isaac was born, and Sarah was in 90.
Yeah.
I mean.
But I mean, I don't know how old he was when Ishmael was born.
Well, I mean,
but,
he was still up there. I mean, but think about it. I've done had to send off Ishmael.
Yeah.
Done had to send him packing.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're wanting Isaac?
Yeah.
Now, that had to be tough. I mean.
But he was willing to do it.
But he was willing to do it.
Well, I think there was a high level of trust.
Yeah.
I think he had to really trust God. I think
That's
if
what-
he didn't, then
Yeah.
I don't think he could have done that.
That's what the New Testament tells us, that hey, it was counted as faithfulness, as righteousness. Why? Because he knew that God was completely able to raise him from the dead. You know, hey, you said you're gonna do it through Isaac, so somehow Isaac, this, you know,
Yeah.
whatever happens, somehow. And Abraham rose instantly to respond to the call of his divine friend. Just here, it is well to recognize the Asian thought in a transaction like this. An Asian father prizes an only son more than he prizes his own life. For an Asian father to die without a son is a terrible thought. But with a son to take his place, he's ready to die. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's very much a mindset. I mean, because again, at this time, daughters couldn't inherit. Daughters were pretty much like cattle. I mean, really.
You're
You know?
right.
I mean,
Yeah. And in some
I'm
cultures
gonna barter
still are.
off. Exactly. Well, I mean, you look at the problems overseas with, you know, the one-child limit. I think now they're moving it to 2 because you've had a whole genocide of of daughters. And that's not going to bode well when all these fellas get grown, is all I got to say. It ain't going to work. Got to have them both.
That's it.
But anyway, that's a whole nother line that goes into our Monday night. That's what we've been talking about. So, for Abraham to have surrendered his own toil-worn life, now that a son of promise had been born to him, it would have been a minor matter at the call of God. But for Abraham to surrender that son and to become again a hopeless, childless old man was a different matter. Only a faith that would neither reason nor question, only a love that would neither fail nor waver could meet an issue like that. Didn't question, just did. You know, I think about so much that's been going on, like things have been going in warp drive around here. And I keep getting that, well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do it? And the only thing I can say is, well, God brought us to it, so God's going to have to provide it, because I really don't have those kinds of answers. But I know that God has put this in our path, and so He's the one that's going to have to make it able.
Yeah,
I mean,
and He will.
You know, all I can say is, Jesus, you got a meal.
Yeah,
you know, I mean.
There again, you got faith.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just have faith.
Yeah.
And
We have faith and we have works.
Yeah.
Put things behind it.
That's it.
You know, but we got feet on the ground and we got faith for it.
Well, you know, that faith still went up, trucked it up the mountain.
Yeah.
Where's the sacrifice? God will provide one. Come on. Come on.
Okay.
All the world over, men in the covenant of blood friendship were ready to give that which was dearer than life itself to their blood covenant brothers or their gods. Would Abraham do as much for his divine friend as men would do for their human friends? Would Abraham surrender to his God all that the worshipers of other gods were willing to surrender in proof of their devotedness? There were questions to be answered before the world. These were questions to be answered before the world. Abraham showed himself capable of even such friendship as this in his blood covenant with Jehovah. Genesis 22, 3 through 10.
Okay. Let's see, what have I got up here? Okay. All right. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took two of his young men with him and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him.
Yes.
Then on the third day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you." So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the two of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." Then he said, "Look, the fire and the wood, but there is no lamb for the burnt offering." And Abraham said, "My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering."
That's right.
So the two of them went together. Then they came to the place of which God had told him. And Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. That was 3:14, wasn't it?
Yep.
But the angel of the Lord called to him from the heaven and said,
Through 10, but that's okay.
was it?
Yeah. It's okay. It's still going on through.
Abraham. So he said, here I am. And he said, do not lay your hand on this lad or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me.
There you go.
And didn't he, and it sounded like, I mean, it didn't go into details, but it sounded like that even Isaac went along.
Oh yeah.
I mean, willingly, he was willing to. He didn't like try to run away or fight his father. I mean, it didn't say that, but that's having faith too.
Yeah, I think he was kind of putting two and two together here. Hold up.
Oh, yeah, I guess it's me. Well,
I've been on the mountain before. I understand the checklist.
Yeah.
But that's the picture. That's the picture of mankind. Mankind was on the altar. Mankind was the thing about to be killed off.
Yeah.
When God provided a ram in the thicket, not a lamb, a grown male sheep. He provided his son, the perfect sacrifice. There's a whole lot of pictures here, and the deeper you go, the more beautiful it is.
Yeah.
And when he had manifested his spirit of devotedness, he was told to stay his hand. Hebrews 11:17 and 19, or through 19.
By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from which he also received him in the figurative sense.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, think about how he made us.
Exactly.
From the dust of the earth. So, he could pull up ashes or anything else. And
in that he didn't waver at any of the promises of God. The promise that through Isaac there would be nations. He didn't waver at that one. Well, God, I guess you done changed your mind. No. You promised that. So I guess you're just going to raise him up. I don't know. But you're going to do it. I mean, that kind of faith and the action that went along with it, there was no hesitation. There's going to be times in our walk when there's no time for hesitation. That's why the Bible tells us that the one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back to those things, that thinks about those things, how it used to be, is not fit for the kingdom.
Right.
When you take your hand to the plow, when you grab hold of this life, when you grab hold of the work, then you better be eyes forward to the kingdom.
That's right.
There's no turning back.
No.
Then it was that the angel of Jehovah called unto Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, by myself have I sworn by my life. That's Genesis 22:15 and 16.
Yeah.
Here is the foundation of that covenant Godward. There was nothing that God could swear by except himself. That's about top tier you're going to get.
Yeah.
To the Asian mindset, it meant I swear by myself. Now, if this fails, I become your slave. You own me. I put myself in bondage to you. I mean, how many times do people, I swear, and they lie through their teeth? Usually that's your indicator. No, that ain't true. No, that ain't true. But God made this, swearing on his own name, eh? They are bound together. All that God is belongs to Abraham. And all that Abraham is or ever will have belongs to God in this covenant relationship. Here he made a covenant with one man. And now it says that we have a better covenant in the New Testament, in the new covenant, which is really what testament means. Think about this. All that God is, all that he has, he's in covenant with us. We have access to.
Yeah.
Who are we to deny anything to God? He expects equal. Trust me, our little cookie crumb can't begin to compete with all he has to offer, and yet he requires us to hand over the crumbs. He still requires it. Is he getting what he paid for? Now you can understand why so many times he said, I am Jehovah who keepeth covenants. He is the covenant keeping God. He keeps his covenant. Back behind Israel was this solemn covenant that God had sealed on his side by putting himself in utter, absolute bondage to that covenant. Hesed, obligatory. I am obligated to you. Not because you can make him obligated, but because he chooses to be. The only thing that we have in the new covenant, and if you look it through and you line it up, Hesed is to the old covenant what agape is to the new. But that's all the time we got for today. So with that, guys, I hope y'all will be back Monday when we continue our study in ministry. Remember, we love you, God loves you, there ain't a thing you can do about it, and we will see y'all then.